You're listening to The Narrative Nest, where forgotten stories are unearthed. One chilling thread at a time. This is the story of Emily Grace, the quiet girl who disappeared without a trace, and the family who refused to bring her home. It was October 3rd, 1992, a Saturday morning in the quiet town of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania. A small town with white fences, cold porches, and secrets buried beneath wet autumn leaves. It's a kind of town where nothing bad ever happened, at least not out loud. But that day, the sun had refused to rise properly. A thick gray fog blanketed the street like a warning, and Emily Grace stood on the edge of her porch, her hands clenched tightly around the straps of her backpack. She was 17 years old, a senior at Willow Creek High, with shoulder-length dark hair, large brown eyes, and a soft voice that never seemed to rise above the wind. Emily wasn't popular, nor was she invisible. She existed in that quiet middle space. Polite nods in. Hallways, no sleepovers, no rumors. Just a girl who sat near the window and liked to draw birds in the margins of her notebooks that morning. Emily had waited 15 minutes before her mother, Linda Grace, opened the door. Not to say goodbye, not to wish her a good day, just to tell her the toast was getting cold. That was Linda. Sharp, practical, distant. The kind of mother who bought clothes a size too big because you'll grow into them, and didn't believe in hugs after the age of 12. Emily didn't respond. She turned, stepped off the porch, and walked down the fog-covered street. Her footsteps silent against the damp sidewalk, but she didn't go to school that day. Instead, she took a left turn, down past Maple Drive, toward the quiet corner where the Rosewood Center stood. The Rosewood Center for Special Children wasn't marked with a sign. It's just a narrow iron gate and a pale brick building that always smelled faintly of chalk and clay. Emily volunteered there every Saturday. Sometimes, after school, she wasn't required to. She wasn't getting credit or earning a badge. She just liked being there, being seen inside. The children greeted her not with words, but with light. Joey, a 6-year-old boy who hadn't spoken in over a year, smiled when he saw her. He never smiled at anyone else. Emily sat with him. In the art room, handing him colored pencils, sketching beside him in silence. She had a way of matching the silence of others like it was a language she had mastered. Miss Grace, Mrs. Ellen, the center director, had said once, "You may not speak loudly, but you say more than most people ever do." Emily had smiled at that. That afternoon she stayed longer than usual. Joey drew a picture, 2 houses, a bird, and a little girl with no mouth. Emily stared at it for a long time, something tugging at her chest. Something she couldn't quite name. When she finally returned home, it was nearly dark. Her father, Mark Grace, was in the garage again, fixing something that didn't need fixing. He looked up when she entered the kitchen but said nothing. That was his usual way, a nod, an empty plate left at the edge of the table. Sometimes she wondered if he even noticed when she left in the morning. Her mother was already upset. "You skipped school," Linda said, arms crossed, lips tight. The school called. Emily didn't respond. She took her coat off slowly, hung it. On the back of the chair? "Where were you, Rosewood? That place again?" Linda's voice sharpened. "I don't know why you keep going there. You're not one of them." Emily's jaw tightened. She said nothing. "Do you think they'll fix you?" Linda continued. "You're not broken, Emily. You're just ... dramatic." The word hit her harder than a slap. "I like it there," Emily whispered. "Why? You like disappearing?" "From responsibility, you like escaping. Well, we're not letting you escape anymore. No more Rosewood. You're grounded." Mark Grace didn't say a word. He just took another bite of meatloaf and looked at the TV. Emily turned and walked up the stairs. Her bedroom was small, just one window, a small desk, a bookshelf full of old paperbacks, and a twin bed pushed against the wall. She locked the door behind her, sat at her desk, opened her diary. She wrote, "Today I watched Joey draw a girl without a mouth. I think that's me. Mom says I'm dramatic. Maybe I am. Maybe they just stopped listening years ago. No. I wonder if anyone would notice if I stopped showing up. Sometimes I feel like I'm vanishing slowly, like steam off a mirror." She closed. The diary slid under the loose floorboard near her bed. pulled her sweater over her knees, and stared out the window. The fog was back. The next morning, Emily was gone. Her bed was made, her closet closed, her window locked from the inside. The front door had never been opened. No sign of forced entry. No note. Her mother thought she was being rebellious. She'd come back when she's hungry, Linda said. Her father didn't even ask. By nightfall, no one had called the police. 2 days passed. Then a week, Linda checked the schools, called a few friends, drove past the Rosewood Center and asked Mrs. Ellen if she'd seen her daughter. She hasn't come in, Mrs. Ellen said. That's not like her. Linda left without saying thank you. By week 3, the story started to crack. Neighbors asked questions. A teacher mentioned Emily's absence. The school counselor tried calling. No one picked up. By week 4, no one was asking any more, and the house at 47 Rose Hill Lane began to fade into silence. 7 years passed. The Graces eventually moved out. The house was foreclosed. It's left to rot, its windows boarded, its walls cracked. No one wanted to buy it. Teenagers whispered about it at night. Some said it was haunted. Others said it was just empty. In 1999, the town sold the property to a development firm looking to build condos. The demolition was scheduled for mid-October. Crew arrived with hard hats and machinery. They didn't expect trouble. They didn't expect room 17. It was an upstairs bedroom, sealed behind a second wall. Drywall over the original door.
Fresh.
Paint long since faded. No one had known it was there. When they broke through, they found the room intact. A bed, a desk, a window locked. The air was heavy, stale, thick with time, and in the corner, a figure, draped in what had once been a sweater, curled up like a child asleep. The coroner said the body had been there for years. No obvious signs of violence, no blood, no struggle, just ... stillness. They found a diary under the floorboards. Dozens of pages, thoughts, drawings, stories, poems, and the last entry, written in shaky handwriting, dated October 4th, 1992. I think I'm disappearing now. Not suddenly, not all at once. Just ... slowly. I don't think anyone will notice, but Joey might. The news broke across the town like a storm girl found after 7 years inside her own home. But the strangest part came later. When the coroner contacted the Graces, now living in Ohio, they refused to accept the body. That isn't our daughter, Linda Grace had said. Mark Grace never returned the call. The body was classified as unclaimed. The town buried her in the cemetery near Rosewood, in a plot donated by the community. The headstone read, Emily Grace, 1975 to 1992, a girl who was here, girl they forgot. No family attended. Only Mrs. Ellen came, holding Joey's drawing in a plastic folder. Joey had drawn a new picture that week, one he hadn't drawn before. It was a house, a girl behind a window, the bird flying. Away with a key. The wind over Willow Creek Cemetery had a way of speaking. It never howled or roared. It whispered in rustling leaves, shifting branches, and dry grass underfoot. The kind of sound that only people who listen very closely can ever truly hear. That morning, no one but Mrs. Ellen stood beside Emily's grave. And even she couldn't speak. She held Joey's drawing tight to her chest. The bird with a key etched in crayon, the little girl behind the window drawn with careful lines. Joey never talked, but that week he had pointed at the drawing and whispered one word. Home. Mrs. Ellen didn't tell anyone that, not the police, not the press. Some things weren't for them. 2 days after the funeral, Detective Michael Hill reopened the case. It wasn't protocol. The girl had been found. No visible wounds, no sign of foul play. But something about it didn't sit right with him. Was 28 when Emily vanished. A rookie cop who delivered the missing person form to Linda Grace's front porch. He remembered the way Linda had smiled. She's probably with some boy, she'd said. They always come crawling back. Number, tears, no worry, just mild irritation. Back then, he didn't push it. He'd barely been on the force a year. But now, with Emily's body found locked inside the house, in a room no one admitted existed, he couldn't ignore it. He started with the floor plans. The original blueprints of the house, dated 1968, clearly showed 3 upstairs bedrooms. Yet the current plans on file only showed 2. Room 17 had been erased. Who sealed it? Pulled the records from 1992, permits, renovations, anything that might show work done. Nothing. No paperwork, no contractor receipts, no remodeling history. It was like the room had simply disappeared, just like the girl. Detective Hill visited the property 2 weeks after the discovery. The walls were stripped now, the furniture removed. But the room still felt wrong. He stood in the doorway, flashlight sweeping over faded wallpaper and cracked floorboards. The air felt heavier in there, stiller. He could see where the bed had been, soft impression in the dust. He knelt and ran his hand over the floor, and the boards groaned slightly. Under his weight, he tapped. One of them echoed. He pried it up. There it was, the compartment where they found her diary. It was empty now, of course. But the space told a story. Someone had hidden things here. The next morning, he drove out to Ohio. The Graces lived in a narrow, beige-sided house in a cul-de-sac that looked almost identical to their last one. Linda opened the door wearing a robe and sunglasses. She didn't invite him in. "We already told the other detective," she said. "We're not accepting the body. We've moved on." "I'm not here about the body," Hill replied. "I'm here about the room." She blinked. "What room? The sealed bedroom upstairs? It's the one where we found Emily?" "That room doesn't exist." "It did. You just covered it up." She shifted in the doorway, her face hardening. "My husband handled all that," she said. "You'll have to ask him." "Is he home?" She didn't answer. Hill waited and asked wide, "You do it?" Linda looked directly at him for the first time. She wouldn't stop. She whispered, "Stop what?" She'd scream. She'd scream in the middle of the night for no reason. Cry over nothing. She'd WASN. Too normal. Was 17. She was ungrateful. After everything we gave her, that room was the only way to keep her quiet. She kept threatening to run away. So we made it easier. Detective Hill stared at her, unsure whether he had just heard a confession or a justification. She asked for it. She said that evening, Hill sat in his car for nearly 20 minutes. His hands gripped the wheel. His mind replayed what she'd said over and over. He couldn't arrest her. Not yet. Not without proof. The coroner's report said no trauma. No visible cause of death. The official theory was that Emily had locked herself in possibly as a runaway and died of starvation or dehydration. But Hill didn't buy it. He returned to Willow Creek and paid a visit to the Rosewood Center. Mrs. Ellen greeted him with red-rimmed eyes. She didn't smile. "I knew you'd come," she said. "Did Emily ever talk about her home life?" "She wrote more than she spoke," Mrs. Ellen said. "But yes, she was. Afraid of her mother, always careful about what she said, like someone was always listening. She came here a lot, almost every day. She'd sit with Joey for hours, draw with him, read to him. She was calmer here, happier. Did anything change before she vanished?" Mrs. Ellen paused. "She brought me a drawing," she said finally. "One she never showed anyone else. I still have it." She disappeared into her office and returned with a thin folder. Inside was a page from Emily's sketchbook. It showed a girl curled in the corner of a small room. There was no door, no windows. Just for walls and outside, a family sitting. At a dinner table, laughing, she said, "This is what it feels like," Mrs. Ellen whispered. Back at the station. Detective Hill opened the evidence box. Emily's diary had been cataloged and stored. He flipped to the final entries, the ones dated just before her disappearance. October. "She told me I'm not sick, that I'm just looking for attention. I think they'd rather I disappear than deal with me." October 2nd. Joey smiled. "Today drew me with wings. Said I'm like the birds. I wish I was." October 3rd. "I think I made her angry. I think this time she means it." October 4th. "It's quiet now. I don't know how many days it's been. I sleep a lot. Disappearing, maybe that's okay." Hill ran his fingers over the ink. The last word was smudged, as if touched while still wet. He flipped the page. There was one more drawing. It was of room 17, but in this version, there was a door, key hanging on the outside, and a bird flying away with it. He remembered Joey's new drawing. The same image. It couldn't be coincidence. He called Mrs. Ellen that night. "How much does Joey remember?" "He remembers everything," she said quietly. "He just doesn't speak it. I need to speak with him." "He only responds to familiarity," she said. "He might not trust you." "Then can you ask him something?" "What?" "Ask him if he saw someone put Emily in that room." The next morning, Mrs. Ellen sat with Joey in the art room. She didn't ask right away. She waited until he was coloring quietly a new sheet in front of him. Then softly she asked, "Joey, you remember Emily?" He nodded. Double quotes. "Do you remember the room?" Another nod. "Did someone put her there?" Joey paused, then very slowly he drew a hand. A large hand, holding a key. And next to it, he drew a bird, flying away with the key. That afternoon, Hill returned. To the property, the demolition was paused. The construction company didn't want bad press. He walked into room 17 one last time. He stood in the center, closed his eyes. The silence was loud here, oppressive. He imagined her sitting here, day after day, wondering if someone would notice. If someone would knock, someone would care. They didn't. The official report remained unchanged. No prosecution, no arrests, just silence. But Hill knew the truth, and he wasn't the only one. Joey drew another picture that week. It showed a bird. Its wings were fire. Its eyes were open, and behind it, the house was gone. The first time Olivia Fields read about Emily Grace, it was buried in the bottom half of the town paper. Under a notice about pumpkin festivals and a discount on used tires. She was 29, a freelance journalist, newly returned to Willow Creek after 10 years away. The headline caught her eye only because she remembered the name. Emily Grace, the quiet girl from art class. The one who sat near the windows. The one who never raised her hand. Olivia had never spoken to her directly, not once, but she remembered her. It was strange what the brain held on to. The article was thin, rushed, more summary than investigation. It said the girl had been found inside her family's former home, in a sealed-off room. Her remains were discovered by demolition workers. No sign of foul play. Family had declined to claim the body. That last line hit Olivia like ice. She folded the paper, opened her laptop, and began to search. No one was really covering the story. No features, no editorials, no headlines shouting for justice. Just silence. As if everyone had already agreed to let Emily stay buried, Olivia couldn't do that. She wasn't a famous journalist. She hadn't published in the Times, but she had a voice, a microphone, and a small podcast called Echoed. It wasn't big, but it was real. She'd told stories of abandoned houses, old crime scenes, small-town secrets, and now she knew the next story she had to tell. She called it The Girl in Room 17. She started with the basics: old yearbooks, archived school rosters, interviews with teachers. It didn't take long to gather a picture of Emily. Quiet, artistic, emotionally distant. No extracurriculars, few friends. Polite but withdrawn. Her last attendance record was October 2nd, 1992. The school hadn't been notified of her disappearance. There had been no formal missing persons report until 4 weeks later, and even then, it was half-hearted. Olivia requested. The police file-in was shocked by how thin it was. A single page, no photos, no interviews. She reached out to the original officer on the case. He was retired. No comment. Then she found Detective Hill. He didn't answer her first 3 calls. On the 4th, he picked up. "You're not the first to ask," he said. "But I might be the first to actually listen," she replied. He paused. "Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., bring a recorder." They met in a diner just outside town, in a booth that smelled like coffee and fried eggs. Hill looked older than his age, hair already gray, eyes heavy. He didn't waste time. She didn't run away, he said. She was sealed in. Sealed. Drywall paint. Like the room was erased. Olivia stared, and her parents denied everything. Said the room didn't exist. Said Emily was difficult. Said she probably left on her own. You believe them? No? Why wasn't anything done? Hill gave a bitter smile. Because no one cared. No one loud enough anyway. She recorded everything over the next 2 weeks. Olivia dug deeper. She spoke with Mrs. Ellen, who cried when Emily's name came up. She visited the Rosewood Center, saw the drawings Joey had made, the girl behind the window, the bird with the key. She stood in the empty lot where the house once stood, now flattened, field of gravel and broken foundation. She read the diary. The town had tried to forget. But Emily had written everything. Each page was a window into her collapse, slowly, quietly, like a sunset no one notices until the sky is black. One entry stood out. I keep hearing footsteps outside the wall, but no one ever knocks. The podcast episode released on a Friday. Olivia titled it simply, Sealed. The reaction was immediate. Comments, emails, thousands of plays within days. People from Willow Creek wrote in to say they'd always felt something was wrong. Former classmates admitted they never really knew her. One girl confessed she remembered Emily crying in the bathroom once and hadn't said anything. Others weren't so supportive. The Graces, or what remained of them, issued a statement through a lawyer denying everything. But public sentiment had shifted. Silence no longer protected them. One email stood out. It came from a woman named Claire Benson. The subject line read, "You need to hear this." The message was short. I knew Emily. I was her neighbor. There's something you don't know. I never told anyone I couldn't, but I saw something. I still remember the night. Olivia replied instantly. They set up a meeting. Claire was in her 50s now, nervous, tapping her fingers against her teacup. She hadn't lived in Willow Creek since 1995. I lived across the street, she said. Third house on the left. And you saw something? Yes. October 4th. I remember because it was a Sunday, and my husband was watching the game. Claire paused. I saw Mark Grace dragging a sheet across the hallway upstairs. I thought maybe it was laundry, but something was wrong. It was stiff. Heavy. And he looked, she shook her head. He looked like a man walking in his sleep. You think it was Emily? Claire nodded. And I heard something else that night. A sound like ... hammering. Just once or twice. Then silence. Olivia's skin prickled. This was what she'd been looking for. She ended the interview and packed her equipment. As she was leaving, Claire said one more thing. I didn't come forward before because I was afraid, but I'm more afraid of forgetting her now. That night, Olivia sat at her desk and stared at the waveforms on her screen. Claire's voice hovered in blue peaks and valleys. Outside it was raining. She thought of Emily. The drawings, the diary. The sealed room, she thought of Joey. And that made her make one more call. Rosewood Center, said a voice on the line. Hi, this is Olivia Fields. I'd like to speak with Mrs. Ellen about Joey. The next day, Olivia returned to the center. Mrs. Ellen greeted her with tired eyes but a soft smile. I have something, she said. Joey made it last night. She handed her a fresh drawing. It showed a bird, again. But this time, the bird wasn't flying away. It was perched on a gravestone, and beneath it, the name Emily. Olivia's breath caught. He's saying she's still waiting, Mrs. Ellen whispered. For what? To be seen. That night, Olivia sat in her small home studio and began to write. Her second episode began with a line she hadn't planned. Some girls vanish because the world swallows them. But some are hidden, covered, erased. Not by strangers, but by the people who were supposed to love them most. She told the full story. She quoted the diary. She ended with Joey's drawing. It went viral. National outlets picked it up. The girl in room 17 trended for 2 days straight, but the story wasn't over. 2 weeks later, a man walked into a police station in Dayton, Ohio. He was tall, gray-haired, quiet. My name is Mark Grace, he said. I need to confess something. Mark Grace didn't look like a killer. The officer at the front desk had expected someone hunched, haunted, the kind of man with shaking hands and a worn-out Bible tucked under his arm. But Mark was calm, pressed shirt, tidy shoes. Even waited patiently while the officer found a detective. "I've done something," he said when they brought him into the interview room. "A long time ago, and I can't carry it anymore." He didn't ask for a lawyer. He didn't ask for coffee. He just started talking. "It was October 1992. My daughter had a fight with her mother. Again, she slammed the door so hard it cracked the frame. She wouldn't come out, wouldn't eat, wouldn't speak." He folded his hands on the table, stared at them for a long time. "Linda said we should let her sit in it. Learn her lesson." She said not to feed her. Said Emily needed to know what. Silence felt like... There was a pause, just the ticking of the wall clock. On the second day, I opened the door. She was curled up under her desk, just quiet. I brought her some crackers. She didn't touch them. Did she speak to you? Mark nodded once. She asked me if I believed her. I didn't even know what she meant. What did you do next? I told Linda we had to do something, therapy, help, anything. But she said no. She said Emily would grow out of it. And then, Mark's voice dropped. On the third night, I heard her crying, loud like she was choking. I went up. Linda was already outside the door, furious. She said she's making a scene again. He swallowed. I got scared. No, why? I told her to be quiet. I told her if she didn't stop, I'd take the door off. And did you? Mark didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the wall. His next words were barely audible. We boarded it up. You what? Covered the door? Drywall? Paint? Said it was the guest room? No one ever used it anyway? Ow. Linda said if she wanted to act like she didn't exist, then fine. Ow. Detective leaned forward. Was Emily still inside when you did that? A long silence. Then, yes. The tape stopped. Detective Hill received the call the next morning. He drove 7 hours straight, arriving just as Mark was being transferred to a county facility. He didn't speak to the press, didn't smile, just nodded once when Hill passed him in the hallway. I didn't kill her, he said quietly. But I didn't save her either. Linda Grace was arrested 2 days later. She denied everything, said Mark was trying to punish her. Said he was. Inventing it, said Emily. Ran away and must have come back later and hidden herself. But the evidence had caught up. Joey's drawings, Claire's testimony, the diary, the unpermitted construction, and now Mark's confession. The state charged Linda with manslaughter, child neglect, and obstruction of justice. She pleaded not guilty. The trial began 6 months later. Willow Creek had never seen so many cameras. Olivia sat in the third row, her recorder hidden under her scarf. She didn't need video, she just needed voices. The prosecution read from Emily's diary, played clips from Olivia's podcast, presented blueprints. Neighbors testified, teachers, doctors, even Mrs. Ellen, whose voice trembled on the stand. She wasn't dangerous, she said. She was kind, soft. She just needed someone to see her. When Joey's drawing was submitted as evidence, the courtroom fell into silence. The crayon bird, the sealed room, key flying away. The defense tried to dismiss it as imagination, but it was too late when Linda took the stand. She was cold. She did this to herself, she said. All that sulking, all that silence. She wanted attention. The jury deliberated for 2 days. They found her guilty on all counts. The judge called her a mother in title only and sentenced her to 15 years. Mark Grace received 5 years. With parole, neither of them spoke during sentencing. Olivia released the final episode of her series the next week. She called it Wings. She told the whole story, the silence, the ceiling, the awakening. She ended with a quote from Emily's diary. I used to think disappearing meant being gone, but now I know. Disappearing means being here and not mattering. The episode shattered records. It was picked up by national syndicates. Streaming platforms reached out. Listeners around the world sent messages of anger, of sorrow, of apology, but the real change came quietly. The Rosewood Center received a massive influx. of donations. They started an art therapy program in Emily's name. Joey began speaking again, not in sentences, not right away, but in words. His first word was key, then window, then home. The town of Willow Creek held a vigil. That fall, hundreds gathered at the lot where the house had once stood. They lit candles. Read passages from Emily's journal, and in the center of the field, someone placed a small statue. It was a bird, wings wide, key in its beak. Underneath it, a plaque, for Emily Grace, the girl who mattered. The silence ends here. No one spoke. For a long time, just the wind. And then from the back of the crowd, a child's voice said softly, "She came back." The morning after the vigil, Olivia walked the gravel path behind the old Rosewood Center. It was just after sunrise, the air heavy with dew and the scent of pine. Somewhere behind her the world had moved on, coffee brewing, radios murmuring, engines warming, but here it was still, quiet, and somehow more alive than it had ever been. The statue of the bird stood untouched. 8. Someone had placed fresh flowers at its base. A child's drawing was taped gently to its side, a sun, a window, and a smiling girl with brown hair. Olivia crouched beside it and traced the words on the plaque with her fingers. The silence ends here. For most of her life, Olivia had been chasing voices. Interviews, recordings, stories pulled from dusty files and unmarked graves. But this one had changed her. Emily's story hadn't just been tragic, it had been buried intentionally, cruelly, and completely. Not by strangers, but by those who were supposed to love her. The final episode of her series had gone out a week earlier. She had ended it not with a quote or a dramatic score, but with Emily's own voice, not spoken, but written, from one of the last entries in the diary, dated weeks before her death. I think we all just want someone to say, "I see you," that you're not invisible, that you're not a mistake. I hope one day someone reads this and knows that I was real. That line had stuck with millions. It was printed on t-shirts, shared across timelines, scribbled into school notebooks. For a while, the internet had cared. People sent poems, art, messages of apology to a girl they never met. A girl who never asked for fame, just to be known. And yet even as the world moved on, something else remained. A kind of awareness, shift. School District of Willow Creek passed a new regulation requiring monthly wellness checks on all at-risk students. Teachers received additional training. A new art room was built in the high school, dedicated to creative silence. The plaque on the door read, "Room 17." At Rosewood, Joey continued to grow. He spoke more often now, short words, gentle phrases, mostly to Mrs. Ellen, occasionally to Olivia. But every week, without fail, he drew something new. Birds, keys, windows. One morning, he brought Olivia a new drawing. It was different from the others. This one showed a girl with long dark hair, older now, standing under a tree, and next to her, a woman with a microphone. They were smiling. Behind them, the house was gone. But in its place was a field of birds. "Who is this?" Olivia asked, kneeling beside him. Joey pointed to the girl. "Emily." Then to the woman. "You." Blinked me. He nodded. "Why are we together?" Joey looked down at the drawing, then whispered, "You found her." It was the first full sentence he'd ever spoken to her. She pressed the drawing to her chest. In the weeks that followed, Olivia traveled across the country, invited to panels, interviews, universities. Everyone wanted to hear the story. She told them the same thing each time. This isn't about what happened to Emily. It's about what didn't. She wasn't kidnapped. She wasn't murdered by a stranger. There were no blood trails or forced entries. She died in a sealed room 30 feet from where her parents ate dinner. She died of absence. And that, she told them, should haunt us more than anything. In the spring of the following year, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived at the Rosewood Center. It was addressed in shaky handwriting. No return address. Inside was a note in a small envelope. The note read, "I never knew how to say it, but I'm sorry. She came to see us, helped us, and we didn't help her back. This is all I can offer." Inside the envelope was a photograph. It showed Emily, sitting on the floor of the Rosewood art room, holding a crayon with Joey beside her. She was smiling, not the kind of smile people fake for cameras, but the kind that slips out when someone feels safe. No one knew who had sent it, but Joey taped it to the wall beside his drawings and sat in front of it for a long time. That summer, the mayor of Willow Creek announced a new memorial scholarship, the Emily Grace Award for Youth Advocacy. It would be given each year to a student who showed extraordinary compassion and care for others, especially those forgotten. The first recipient was a 14-year-old girl named Mia, who had started an after-school peer support group. She ended her acceptance speech with the same words from the podcast: "Some girls vanish because the world swallows them, but some are hidden, covered, erased. Not by strangers, but by the people who were supposed to love them most. We can't go back and save Emily, but we can make sure no one else disappears." As the applause faded, Mia walked down the steps, holding her small plaque in trembling hands. Olivia watched from the crowd, tears in her eyes. The following fall, Olivia released a book. It was called Room 17, The Girl Who Waited. The dedication read, "For every quiet voice, every locked room, and every child who was told they were too much or not enough, we hear you now." The final page of the book was blank, except for a single line. She was real. She was here. Now, she is seen. Back in Willow Creek, the field where the house once stood was left undeveloped by unanimous town vote. Instead, it became a park. They called it Gracefield. Children ran there now, laughed, painted birds on little easels the town donated. They made keys from string and paper and hung them in the trees. Every year, on October 4th, the town held a remembrance walk. No speeches, no spotlights, just light candles and silence, but not the kind that hides, the kind that listens. Listens for the sound of a girl's voice, a girl who was there, a girl who waited, and a world that, at long last, opened the door.